Although now I have the baby carrier, and it's awesome, because then every time I put it on, I'm like, okay, start the timer, and if I get like a good 9 months of this, then we're even, okay? But yeah, he's adorable, but he's loud. So I got baby brain. Apologies in advance. Yeah, let's see if I can make it through this. I've been going to bed at 9, so I have like less than 2 hours until bedtime. Let's see. Yeah.
It's not a problem, it'll be when you're driving home.
Yeah. Why do you think I brought a DD?
Designated dead.
Yeah. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Louis Shabib over here, he's my dad. He runs the Utah Python North group. Yeah, let's talk about all the groups, shall we, actually? I usually have like a really good cadence on it. I'm just not with it today. Salt Lake City Python, how did we start? We started because I was hanging out in a coffee shop and somebody was running Django in Sugar House, and we were like, hey, is that Django? We should do a group. And it turns out that there wasn't really a group that was like in the city. It was out down at Provo, which is now Python at the Point. Anybody from Python at the Point here tonight? No? See? Because people just love driving south on I-15 for lunch on Thursday. Oh yeah, they switched it to lunch now though, right? So it used to be in the evenings though. But yeah, this is our evening group. This is Salt Lake City Python. We've been running for 6 years. We have other affiliate groups around. We have Utah Python North. They're going to have a meeting on the 18th about Data Bear, which is Data Bear or Data?
Data Bear.
Data Bear. Is it data or data?
Depends on where you're from.
So what is it for Salt Lake City people?
Well,
Don't know?
well, for Logan, it's Data Bear.
Data Bear. Okay. Well, we'll go with data.
I was thinking United States might be that.
Yeah. But this is the Salt Lake City meetup group, right? So we should put this in our standard stock.
So the data sounds more snobbish.
Does it?
Well, the thing is, if you're in Cache Valley, they have this place called Wellsville, and everybody puts on a mock British accent. It's just the way it is. I thought they were fooling me, and they were going to come back from London, or they were, no, it's actually real.
If you want to be a real snob, just remember that the word data is plural.
Yeah. So I think the consensus is it's data during an interview and it's data for the rest of the. Okay, we're good. So, what are some other groups? We've got the Pi Ladies, Python at the Point. Anybody part of Pi Ladies? If you're part of any of these, as I shout them out, just like raise your hand. We got the Salt Lake City Pi Ladies. What, Isla? When's the next one? Do you know?
They're always last week of the month.
Last week of the month. And then there's more of a lunch thing, right?
No, it's evening meetup.
It's an evening. You can tell I only go to like 2 meetups, this one and the data engineering meetup. Speaking of data engineering meetup, anybody want to give a spiel on their next thing? Anybody?
Maybe the speaker.
Maybe the speaker at the Matt? Data engine. Oh, he's mid pizza. I caught him mid pizza.
I'll check. Let me check real quick.
Okay. There's also Girl Develop It, SLC. They're language agnostic. They're more about like workshops and projects. PyData is another group. The other language agnostic is SLC Devs. I haven't touched base with this individual for a while, and it looks like the URL has a T in it that shouldn't be there. And yeah, and we have websites, we have GitHubs, whatever. If you want to take a look at this and read it in a more sober state, not the sleep-deprived baby Faris, like just go to the meetup and then that link will show up and anybody can edit this. That's going to be super important as we do yet another intro. Do we know when that next meetup is, Matt? Yeah? Googling.
Probably the third Wednesday of the
Googling.
month.
Yeah, I know it's
18.
it's the 18th. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Did you find what it was about as well?
I take it it's something to do with.
It depends on the week. I actually end up going to another meetup a lot.
Oh, okay.
Meetups is no good than this one.
The title I have is Explicit Trust and Fail Secure, Practical Security Tips for Data Engineering.
Thanks.
Okay.
Sounds about right. We have GitHub repos that need updating. I'm just not going to look at them right now. Sponsors, Pythonistas like you. Thank you. Cue the PBS music. Give yourself a pat on the back. Xmission has been a sponsor for a while. They're a local organic ISP. For those who don't know, they have pretty much sponsored all the pizza. Yeah. University of Utah has been a venue for 3 years now. Wow, that's a while. Tech Systems, they often sponsor, these are not sponsored by them this time, but they often sponsor hardware for us. So we'll just say, hey, can we get like a batch of this stuff? They're one of the few recruiters I've worked with that hasn't asked me if I know Java, which is just great. Like, that's why they're on the top of my list. If you want to sponsor, just hit us up. I finally updated most of our accounting. So we do open accounting on the meetup.com site. So all the expenses and sponsorship and anything in and out is listed on there. And then we're officially tax deductible as part of the Utah Python nonprofit that we started earlier last year. New members, who's new here? Boom, yes, lots of new faces, I dig it. And now I know where you sit because you're gonna introduce yourselves. And so what we do is something that's not Cody. Cody, is Cody like a person or is it a coding? Coding, I guess. Tired. New, so just tell us your name, what you're up to, and this time the non-Cody thing is your favorite green thing. So I'm Faris. My occupation is I'm a back-end engineer at Invitae, which is a genetics company. I work remotely, which is why my social skills have gone way downhill lately. And my favorite green thing, I can't even think of a green thing, guys. This is really weird. Aquatic plants, how about that? I like aquatic plants.
What about all those greenhouses you've been going to over the weekend?
Greenhouses? What are you talking? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, who else is new? This gentleman in the front with the Fisher beard.
Yep, my name's Ben. I'm an electrical engineer and process control at Rio Tinto. And my favorite green thing is probably this Fisher hoodie because they make really great beer.
It's pretty awesome beer, actually.
Yeah,
I'm with you there.
Cool.
This gentleman.
Yes, I'm David Osler. I am a data engineer, a software engineer turned data engineer. And I worked at Advanced MD down in Riverton. Favorite green thing, probably good coniferous tree.
A carnivorous tree.
Coniferous tree.
Coniferous. Oh, I was like carnivorous. Nice. Trees are nice. How about this young lady in the back?
My name is Jen Curry. I just left the VP of engineering role to start at my own company.
Nice.
I-
Is that why you're so zen?
Yes! Everybody that I've talked to since I left are like, you look so relaxed and happy.
Nice.
So I've been doing software for over 20 years. I did a lot of back end. I did big data for a couple of years. Scala, real-time pipelines, all
Nice.
kinds of fun stuff. So yeah.
And what's your favorite green thing?
I have my most favorite tree in my backyard, and I can sit on a comfy couch and stare at it. It's my favorite green thing.
I really wish I had trees in my yard. I am so in base right now. But that sounds lovely. This gentleman with the plaid shirt.
I'm Michael. I'm a PhD student here in biomedical engineering. If you've seen videos of the Luke Can, that's the lab I'm in. My favorite green thing is, trees, being outside.
Nobody's saying
Rock
rock.
Get out. Who else is new? This gentleman.
My name's Doug. My background is chemical biological engineering, and I work at Micron in Giant. And my favorite green thing is when the stoplight.
Doing the stoplight. I'm surprised nobody said my ticker symbol or something like that.
It's not green.
It ain't green today. Actually, today I don't even want to look at the markets.
On that
Let's see
note,
what else.
I'm going to interrupt you a second. Welcome back, Micron, into the valley.
Did they leave?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we just became Micron. We used to be Micron Intel, so it was IM Class Technologies and Micron. So
So that's a thing. Who else is new? No one? Did anybody go to the soiree but they'd never been to one of these? A couple people. Well, you guys get to introduce yourselves as well right now. So, Richard?
Rich Edling, and I'm currently between things right now. I'm looking to do health data analytics, and my favorite green thing, I'm okay with currency.
Currency, yes. U.S. currency. All right, almighty dollar. This gentleman in the back.
Gustavo Gutierrez, I work for Pfizer in the managed data management group. Mostly clinical data. Just saying a lot of cash.
Nice. Okay, let's do a quick survey of stuff, because I like to do this every so often. And what was funny is the last time I used this laptop at a meetup was March of 2018. So that made me nostalgic. So I'm going to ask some questions that I think I asked last time. Who here is primarily learning how to code? Like they don't code professionally yet. Like you don't get paid for it yet. Yeah, a few people. It's cool. We all started like that. So awesome. Welcome. Dylan's going to be your man of the hour today. He's going to give you some professional tips on beginning Python. Who is in more of the web and web application side of stuff with their Python use? Okay. Who's more in the data and like definitely data engineering stuff? Okay, and then who's doing data analytics? Okay, and who doesn't fall into any of those categories? I want to see those hands. Okay, I'm going to randomly pick this gentleman with the red plaid. What do you do that's not in that category?
I don't actually really use Python right now. I come to these because I don't get to use it professionally anymore, so I don't get
So you're here for like nostalgia's sake, just like okay.
keep up with what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Matt, how about you?
DevOps.
DevOps. Sorry, I missed that one. Jen, right?
I have to amend.
Yes.
I haven't actually used Python professionally.
Oh, okay. Well, you're a beginner like all of us once were, or are, or still are. I still subscribe when I'm, and this is something that I found really helped me because I hopped onto my new job in December. If you take on a junior dev for life mentality, and you're constantly documenting and like not letting yourself slip into the easy way to slip into, like, oh, I'm just gonna patch stuff because I know it, and still stay hungry for knowledge, you're gonna be set, right? Because then you're gonna be communicating what you don't know, writing down what you find out. Okay, that's been like a moment of zen with Faris. Last little survey question. Who is new to Utah in the last 12 months? Oh, a few people. Where are you coming from?
San Francisco.
Nice. Nice, a refugee of high prices. Welcome to Utah. You could probably buy 2 or 3 houses with what you'd pay for a 1-bedroom over there, so excellent. I think I'm exaggerating.
I just want to say for favorite green thing that you should have Utah green jello.
Green jello, yes. But he's still new. Have you had the infamous green jello with carrots? Just
Nothing special about it.
there's nothing special. Just go to your local church on a Wednesday and just ask. Somebody will have one. Just don't worry about it. Yeah, enough silliness. Pythonistas are silly. I think everybody knows this. Yeah, exactly. Anybody planning on going to PyCon? Nobody? Nope. PyCon. Anybody going this year? Oh, sad face. Well,
I have no plans. When is it?
PyCon is the best conference in the world. Definitively. I'm sorry, just definitively. But it's the best tech conference in the world. PyCon is the Python conference. It's like the worldwide one. There's lots of talks about what's happening in the language, but also beginning talks, how Python could be used in we've had a pyrogeographer. That was a kind of cool title. What was the other things that I've seen presentations on? Visualization of data. Docker was introduced at PyCon in 2016 as a lightning talk, right? Right? So PyCon's pretty... Can you imagine? Yeah, you had to use Vagrant like a sucker. But yeah, PyCon's pretty awesome. I'm not sure if they've sold out of tickets. They are still happening. I don't think they're going to close for COVID. I have a feeling a lot of this stuff is going to taper out, and maybe it's not.
When is it?
It's mid-April, so we'll see. And then, yeah, for people who are freaking out about that, we got sanitizer, wash your hands, the elbow thing. That's all I'll say for that community news. Any other community news I need to touch base on?
Pandas 1.0.
Pandas, they finally decided to put the 1 on there, even though they were like 1.0. Although they, what was that? What do you know of any fun new features people should try out?
I don't.
String support.
Yes, that was it. You want to elaborate a little?
Yeah, so it used to be that if you wanted to work the strings in Pandas data frames, they'd be coerced to things like object. Now you can have a proper string type. Yes, very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
You're in the right place, people.
Also, they have a new null value, sentinel value, that encompasses all the different kinds of nans and nulls and missing values.
Oh, they have the parent one for that.
Yes.
It's a union of all those.
Basically, yeah.
Dylan's like, oh, I need to get back into pandas. Let's see, pandas 1.0. PyCon's happening. Any other community news happenings? No? 2.7's officially dead. Yes. Long live 2.7. Who's still on 2.7? Yeah, for some reason, even with this new company, there's still like 2.7 randomness everywhere, although they also decided that microservices are a thing. So guess what? I have to maintain 300 microservices. So yeah, I'm always the back-end engineer, right? Janitor, yes. Sorry, thank you, Dylan. Yes. Senior janitor.
Staff.
Who's hiring? We have a few places hiring. Score is, if you're looking for volunteering, Score is what this guy's part of.
Yep.
Yeah, they're more of like a small business support kind of group. Looks like some people put some stuff on here. I'm reading this off a screen this big because I don't get to see this, so I'm gonna read it up here. I was gonna really mispronounce this. Actify? Actify? Well, Joe is probably like trolling us right now on the live stream.
I have no
So-
info on that, I just know that Joe had that cold, and he's not here.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Joe. Let's like give if he can hear us, let's just give a golf clap for Joe. Thank you for not coming here when you're feeling sick. If any of you are feeling ill, you'll also get a golf clap as we kick you out.
Actify turns stalled leads into inbound calls.
Oh.
Turn those
Using
stalled.
AI and SMS technology to reactivate your cold leads.
Nice. Yeah, and it's lots of Python and AWS stuff. And he put $3 signs. So make sure to ask him for $250K, okay? Ternary data. Matt, do you want to?
Yeah, come talk to me afterward if you're interested.
Okay.
Really, this would be, it'd be something related to data engineering, a lot of their consulting.
Excellent.
Will they learn more about what you're doing in the talk?
Not really.
Okay.
No, the kind of.
I mean, sometimes talks are, like something else, but
Yeah.
makes sense.
Sweet. Anybody else know of places in the valley that are hiring right now that we should add to this list? Okay, there's one.
Every time I go to a data engineering meetup, what's it called? Recursion Pharmaceutical.
Recursion.
Hiring, yeah.
Recursion's always hiring. They're great.
Check the careers page. We've kind of slowed down a bit though recently, so I'm not sure exactly what's looking right now.
I don't know if I'm going to be violating an anti-competitive clause because I work for Invitae, but Myriad is also hiring. So if you want to go work for a company that never submits research to public domain for other people to use, go for Myriad, they're hiring. If you want to go with the company that just submitted its 1 millionth gene variant to the public resource ClinVar, Invitae is still looking, but they're not actively looking right now, but they will be in Q3. So that's all I'll say. Yeah. Who's looking? Dylan Gregerson, by the way, rock star. He's given more talks at this group than any other Pythonista. So, as I said, those $3 signs, $5 signs. Dylan, he's right here.
How many has it been?
Oh, how many has it been?
Yeah.
It's over 10.
Yeah.
I know that. I think
Yeah.
he's the only one who has double digits.
Yeah.
So-
And every once in a while, I gotta just like check in to make sure no one's coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. He even will interrupt my talks just so he can get another one in.
Yeah. This is what's happening tonight.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
I don't know if I get to count.
Full stack rockstar. Yeah, Dylan. If it has data and there's a lot of it, Dylan's your man.
Yeah, and I'm looking around for something that will do more of the sciencey exploration side of the data science, and also interested in remote work. So,
Put an email
all right.
Who else is looking? Richard, do you wanna market yourself?
Well, my main expertise is in, I guess I'm subject matter expert in health and behavioral health work. I've been doing that for about 20 years, and so I've seen a lot of things that I'm hoping to be able to find evidence for and do data analytics. Like diabetes, bipolar disorder, similar things.
Okay. Who else is looking? You're not digging Rio Tinto?
I'm
Jeez.
tired of process control.
Oh,
Yeah.
who would have known? You know, just. I will keep my lips shut. I took a survey that was a directed survey 3 weeks ago, and they were asking about Rio Tinto, and they were giving me all of these loaded questions, like, when you think of Rio Tinto, do you think of sustainability? I'm like, no. Sorry,
That was the wrong
I can't.
End of survey.
But you're looking to get out of process control.
Yeah. So it's just not challenging enough. All the fun jobs also require a lot of on-call travel in that industry. And I did the travel thing for a while. I'm sick of that. And so I've got a few years of Python experience. Not really an expert in any domain, but I've been kind of cut across the wide swath of the crazy, huge Python ecosystem. I've been able to contribute to well-established, mature code bases. So kind of, I'm certainly not an expert by any means, but I think I've gotten past the just learning how to accomplish things phase.
So
Trying
you're
to do stuff with,
you're a mid-level janitor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Excellent.
About the only thing I'm not very interested in is DevOps and web front end.
Okay.
Anything else is pretty much fair game. And then
Sweet.
the name is DILLER.
Oh, I can't see it, but if you have access, if you have access to a laptop later, go ahead and correct this.
Cool.
Yeah, I can't do it because my mouse keeps going everywhere. Stop it. Okay, sorry. Maybe I can just use. I'll do it later. Who else is
didn't
here?
write bend over. That's what everyone called it when I was growing up.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Who else?
It's DILLER.
Who else is looking? Anybody? Going once? Oh,
Possible.
possibly.
So I do energy management.
Let me see your tab.
Totally unrelated. Kevin.
Kevin. Okay.
That.
And I am considering making a dramatic career change into data science.
Nice.
I'm a lawyer by trade as well.
Oh, do you have your law degree?
I have a law degree now.
And you passed the bar and all that?
That's the bar.
There's everybody in healthcare, all their ears just pricked up. They're like, wait, an auditor who knows how to code.
Definitely use you on the volunteer side
Yeah.
and nonprofit side.
Sweet. Anything else we got to cover? No one else? Going once? Going twice? All right. Okay. If you have a talk idea, here are just some of the other ideas, and you can add to this. You can add your name to this, and if you see something you're really good at, hit me up. Okay, there we go. And yeah, we can talk about that. Now, yeah, I'm going to transition to this demo. So this is a PyPortal. We gave out a ton of these at the soiree. Who got one? Anybody here get one? You won one?
I won one.
Oh,
That was weird.
yeah. I didn't set the seed to make sure that there was like nepotism, okay? I did not set the random seed. But yeah, these are sweet. This, and like, I just love CircuitPython. Has anybody coded on CircuitPython stuff yet? Dylan, has anybody else? Does anybody have like kids that are above the age of 8? Or no kids above the age of 8? Get them one of these. Like seriously, next,
CircuitPython. You
it's
just
a
write-
really good intro to like
Yeah.
Python and programming.
What is it called?
A CircuitPython, but there's a bunch of variants. So this one specifically is called a PyPortal, okay? And they all have like different things. For example, this one has a built-in Wi-Fi, right? And a built-in speaker, and it's a touch screen.
So they have different it's all for hardware hacking.
Yeah.
And there's different modules that are built in, and you can buy these that are pre-made with like, it's got lights and like this one has the
And they have
touch
different
screen, right?
themes.
And so you buy one of these that are $40, and then all it takes is just a Python script that you load onto it, and it runs.
Yep.
And so the programming is
It's
really
and by
good.
load,
It's like,
by
oh,
load
great.
you copy a file named code.py and just copy it into the as if it was a USB stick.
Yep.
Like it's the easiest hardware I've ever worked with. And Arduinos are nice and stuff, but this is Python, you know.
Yeah.
This one's pretty cool too.
For a deployment process, that leaves a dispute side.
Oh yeah, I
So-
worked out some other things where it like takes a different file and copies it in, but yeah, it has a you have to follow their file naming. That's how it finds the file and executes it. But
So this is called a Halloween. These always sell out when? September, October. But this is called a Halloween. And both of these we're giving out today, by the way. These are the raffle prizes too. So this
Have you patched the Halloween yet?
I have. This one I actually gave a class on at West High, and we made mini meme generation machines. Like basically, you would hit a button and there would be a new meme. But it was just to show kids like, hey, this is how like you could load a bitmap onto a little piece of software. And also, we only had 10 of these, and the class had 30 students. So I had to think of a clever way to get like one person to make memes and the other one to like pair program and then switch. So it ended up working out. It was a lot of fun. This is what it's already loaded with. And I think actually this is JavaScript, but you can set it up so it runs Python. But I really like this demo. It's kind of hard to see the iris. If I make it darker maybe. But it has a light sensor, so the iris will actually get bigger and smaller based on that. So these are great around Halloween. And yeah, has an on-off switch, which is actually more helpful than you'd think. Let me turn it back on. And all of these are, by the way, I just get these off Adafruit. And if anybody wants to get something off Adafruit for their own personal use, hit me up and I'll give you we've been given a code because we're a nonprofit. So just hit me up, I'll give you the code, and then you can buy stuff. I think it's 10% off. It's not much, but it's significant. Because this guy goes for like $60. But they're going down in price. But the other thing is, and I didn't bring a battery. This one, you can hook into a small lithium battery, and you could just wear it as a badge at a conference if you want to flaunt that. Has a bunch of inputs, outputs. This one has a lot of analog inputs. So some people have built like soil moisture recording. One thing that I'm still working on, and I keep getting pushed behind, but it's almost done. Damn it! I keep switching texts. Okay, so first I was like, oh, I'm going to do this with Kafka, and then I'm going to do it with Prometheus, and then I just gave up and decided to use Grafana. But I'm trying to build a temperature monitor. I'm glad you got it. I'm trying to build a temperature monitor for a couple fish tanks I have, and it's an analog reading, and I need it to spit out to Wi-Fi, and I want it to display on a board, and I keep adding features, and I'm like my own worst like supervisor. So, yeah, I think we've all been. Sorry?
Haven't done a moisture monitor for diapers yet?
Yeah, no, the diaper moisture monitor is not a thing yet.
That's all it's
But
going on.
yeah, I know that like next year they're gonna have like Internet of Things diapers, and they're gonna be disposable. Like that's how this tech is getting.
yeah. I mean, to give context, when was your kid report?
17 days ago.
17 days ago. So he's still like ramping down his other projects.
Yeah, and then I'll get that diaper one. There was another one. These guys are going to get in trouble from the FDA. Has anybody seen that baby belt that you could put on their leg? They're like socks, the owl socks. That's a local company, but they're getting a lot of complaints because they're trying to do like startup, like super fast technology for a kid, like for a kid's health monitoring device without FDA approval. I mean, it's not like a supplement. It's something that's going to notify you when it thinks your kid stopped breathing. Like, anyway, let's just say I'm very glad I did not purchase one of those. Yeah.
You're
So
just gonna make your own.
Yeah. So whirlwind tour.
And it's gonna have an eyeball in it. It's really wide when it's like something's up.
Yeah.
Don't make me count to 3.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit more. I said a whirlwind tour, and I don't know if anybody heard it. I'm going to try to get it to do it again. You can kind of hear, this one has a built-in speaker, and this one takes an SD card, so you could build like a little photo frame with it. You hear it? It's a tiny speaker. You can hook up an external speaker to this as well. I'm reading this here. Oh, it has I2C, so this one does do analog input. It has a built-in temperature sensor on this. So we're going to hack it.
You just stick that right into your tank, right?
Yeah, just put the whole thing in the fish tank. Nothing will go wrong there. And what it's supposed to be doing, but of course because I'm demoing it, it's not. It's supposed to be going and fetching a quote off of Adafruit has their own API, but it's grabbing a JSON response from a server and just putting it on here. But of course, this is how I debug. Oh, there! Hey, it actually worked. Okay, cool. So that one's Lao Tzu, and prepare for what is difficult when it's easy. As part of that code, it'll turn blue on the back to indicate, hey, I have a solid network connection. It'll turn red when it doesn't, and it'll turn green when it's booting up. So that's pretty nice.
Or you can overwrite that and do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can hack on whatever. But what we're going to do is we're just going to take the code that's on here and hack it. Because I had a whole other demo, and my laptop killed it. So, my other laptop, my work laptop. So fun fact, if you have a work laptop with spyware on it, it's going to F up all of your USB devices for some reason because it's a storage device. So it has to know what's going on. So what happened with the other device is it kept rebooting it for some reason. I don't know why, but I'm still debugging that. And I was debugging that with the child in my other arm, so I just said, F it, I'm just gonna show you what it comes with because this one does run Python initially. And let's show that off. So yes, I will cut myself off at 7:45. And pardon me if this breaks everything. Okay, can everybody see this okay? Still notes? Oh, shoot. Well, okay. Okay, we'll just do it this way then. Can everybody see this? Nobody can see this.
Terminal screen just a second ago.
I know, but it's past the rendering of this stupid projector. So I'm just gonna hit enter a bunch of times. Okay, now we can't even see stuff. Does anybody near know how to do tech support? Fun pro tip: send an invoice to your family members. Put 100% discount on it, but just send an invoice so they know how much you're worth.
I've just been a Linux guy for so long that I don't even know how to fix it.
Oh, yeah, pro tip number 2, put them on Linux and then just change the icons so that it's Internet Explorer.
But really this opens up Firefox.
But yes. Okay, is this better? Yes, okay, sweet. So I'm going to code this right on the board. No, I'm not. Demo days. Okay, I'm going to use this trick. Loop. Okay, now it's mounted. That's what happens when you haven't opened a laptop for 3 years. Okay. So, as you can see, this is just yet another like device on my machine. It's just as if it was a USB stick. And inside we have a bunch of stuff. This boot out, this is part of the, if you need to load the firmware that'll run Python, there's instructions on that, and you can go through that. The main thing we're gonna focus on though is code.py. So let's open it. And this is the editor, I'm just gonna use Vim. Set, no swap. What is it, set? What is it, swap off? Whatever. There's a setting you should set in Vim when you do this because it's building a swap file all the time. And every time a file changes, this will reboot itself. So you're going to hear that sound a bunch of times right now. So as you can see, here's the data source, quote location, author location. I have a weird issue right now. I need to figure out where underscores are not showing up on my terminal. The joys of Linux. Yeah. But as you can see, all you got to do is you just load up this PyPortal class, and it's pretty much like a mega class. And you can set up the background, you can set up the font and the position of the text, and the text color, all that stuff. These are just parameters. So what should we change? Oh, and this is just going to show you like what it's doing. So it has this built-in fetch class, and that'll grab whatever data source you have and spit it out. And my question to oh, there we go, JSON path, quote location, author location, so text and author. So if we wanted, we could actually exit this or comment this out. And now it should actually spit out, it'll spit out the JSON as raw onto the screen. Because what that flag is doing right here, where it says JSON path, is saying like, where in that JSON payload should I grab the info? And then what am I gonna spit it out as? So the quote and author are just a set of tuples. So what you do with this is you give it a set of strings, you give it a list of where the data is in that JSON response. So for example, in this case, it's 0 in text, right? And here's the quote location. So these are two specific paths. And what it'll do is it'll build the rest of the banner on here. So you can kind of, well, it keeps showing the quotes. It's going to show like the main quote, which is the quote location, and then the author will be right here. And the way it knows that is that you just keep doing two sets, right? A list of two objects, and this just reset again. Ding, ding. And, I had a much better demo, but now I don't. And I'll have a better one next time. And I went past my time. But yes, that's a whirlwind tour. This is what the code looks like. But as you can see, it's only 35 lines, right? And that's including spaces. So that's all you really need to get started with this stuff. And yeah, I highly recommend this. If you're just learning Python, this is actually one of the most rewarding ways to learn Python, because you'll learn about like the PyPortal specifically, you know, it has an SD card, so you have to learn how to do file in and out. It has networking, right? So you can fetch a payload and do stuff. This has a touch screen. Oh, here it goes. Well, that didn't show like I thought it would. You can kind of see it, right? It has an open bracket and then one curly brace.
All right.
Yeah. But yeah, and it lets you, you know, you can do posts. So somebody actually, there's a demo on there that it's just a bunch of colors, like a bunch of squares, and he presses the button and it changes his house lights, right? Because he has the hue light bulb. So lots of little uses of this. If you have a 3D printer, there are a ton of little models for this. So there's one print that you can do right now. The case, you'll print it out, and it's built so that you can just put it next to any standard on-off switch, like for a light, right? Because the screws are usually in the same place. and you could just put it right next to that. And then this will let you wire it in. There is a safe way to wire it into that, and I can't think of it, so I won't say what it is yet, but there is a safe way to do it. And then, yeah. Yeah, that's all I'll say for now. And that's all I got. Dylan, do you want to get up?
Should we do a break first?
Yeah, let's do it. We're going to do a 3-minute break while we set up the next speaker. Thanks for gritting your teeth through my awkward presentation of something that crashed earlier today. So, oh, and we are giving these away, so stay tuned.
What kind of library support is there? I mean,
There's a what do you mean?
what can you load on there?
Any Python module.
Is it like ARM specific or?
Not necessarily. You can compile to something. I haven't looked into it that much, but there is a compiler that you can use on like your desktop or something, and it'll send it as a library and it'll like make it minified or whatever. This is based on the microbit project. So 4 years ago, every 12-year-old in Great Britain got a little device kind of like this, and they used a different Python thing called microbit. And they even developed their own editor for it, and it's phenomenal. It's called the Mu editor, MU. And you can use the Mu editor on these. I should have probably used that, actually. And that's pip install MU, by the way, for anybody who wants that editor on the machine. This is the Halloween.
And the other thing,
This is called the PyPortal. And they're both CircuitPython. Yeah.
Both based on the same microbit?
They're both based on CircuitPython. So CircuitPython is like the follow-up to microbit. Was like, okay, microbit's cool, but what if I threw more like processing at this? Microbit was I think you had like 4 megabytes to work with. This one, it's a lot more than that. I think it's closer to like 500 megabytes. And then you can put an SD card and make it a terabyte if you wanted. And then this one is, it's something like that. Oh, each of the teeth, by the way, fun fact, is a button. And you could also put alligator clips on here. This one's really fun. I saw a project where somebody did a plant moisture thing with this, and it was just like a dead skull when the moisture was too low. So, yeah. Oh, and I'll make sure that I include these, don't throw these packets away, because it actually has the URL where you can find like all the tech specs of these guys. But yeah, this is the last of our shipment of these, if you can believe. I think we have one more as a backup, but that's probably going to North. So hopefully you win one. Yeah, we're going to take like a 5-minute break because I'm thirsty for water and beer. Mostly water. Yeah.
So in the good old days, apparently all the math students had wanted beer. That was before I was reading my
Would you have finished if that was still the case?
question. I probably would have finished when they stopped having cocoa and stuff.
Oh, I knew there was a flag. Dang it, Dylan.
A flag
For the swap file.
I mean, yeah.
There's
Also should just stop.
Do you need a dongle? Oh no, you actually have US for HDMI out.
Yeah. Yeah. This is. I like it. I also like the card reader. I used it the other day. I was like, oh yeah, this is just nice.
Where did you get this? You just bought it? Oh, I know where you got it.
Yeah. Okay. I won't say.
Say hi to Kari for me.
I want to actually reach out to Kari.
You'll hear her on the radio next week.
Yeah.
Maybe. Did I just spoil a source? On live TV. Oops. Wait, what's screwed now?
Just well, yeah.
Oh, come on. dude. Seriously?
No one can see what I'm typing yet.
I know.
You can see what I'm typing.
So Dylan's talk is a little bit more topical than I
It's
thought.
gonna be great. It's super cool.
What is it? Just throw it. Oh, I need to pick up that.
Okay. And then,
Always good to stretch. Boy, you're in
sure. I guess I'll turn on Marina.
Yeah. So Dylan Gregerson was born and raised in this here building. They took him from this floor. He moved up a couple floors to the astronomy
Never
department.
on this floor. I was always on the third floor.
He was always
I was
on
on
the
the fourth floor.
fourth
Because
floor.
astronomy has to be near the stars.
Yes.
Always
Always
Yeah.
at the top.
The room doesn't have any windows, but always at the top.
Yep, always at the top of the building.
16th floor office with no windows.
Yeah.
His talk is going to be a little bit more topical. I will remind everybody in the email I sent, the point number 8, do not panic about coronavirus and all that. It's just media panic. So here we go with coronavirus.
Are we giving
Stats on coronavirus.
Okay, so we had a few people that were still exploring Python, kind of getting up to speed. I'm not going to spend a lot. We've done some in the past on this, but I just want to touch on this. Anaconda is a great way to get going if you're just wanting to play around with it. This package that you can download comes with built-in tools for Python, including an editor. The Spider editor is pretty good, and lots of tooling. And then they make it really easy just to get going. If you're used to application interfaces, or if you're working on a Windows, this is a great way to get going. But I'm going to talk more about the command line pieces today. So, deactivate. All right. So what I've opened up here is essentially the terminal application. I'm using a different version called iTerm. But if you search terminal, this comes default with the Mac. Also, Linux has their own terminal application that's always just there. If you just open that up and type Python, you're going to get this Python interpreter.
2.7.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my Mac ships with. So that's the default.
Never run default Python.
Yeah, so default Python, you can then Google install Python 3 on Mac. Yep. And they'll walk you through how to install Python 3. I usually do use Brew, which is a package installer. But then that gives you Python 3. So there's 3.7. Everybody breathe. Everybody breathe. I haven't died. All right. So the first thing I wanted to touch on, when I just type, so this terminal, this is a different way to access your computer, right? How many people are not familiar with like what a terminal shell is? Okay. Okay, cool. How many people like feel a little fuzzy on what an executable is? Okay, great. We're gonna fly past that then. So these are executables, right? Who can explain to me what the path is in a terminal?
No one.
Go for it, David.
Yeah, sure. It's the place. It's like all of the places that are kind of loaded default. So like when you type a command, it'll look in all of those directories for executable programs.
Yep. It's stored as a variable. So if I echo, which just to print, right, and then path, it's going to look just like David said in each of these directories, right, to find my executable. And who knows what the command is to find out which one it resolves to?
Which? It's called which.
Yep, exactly. So which Python 3, we can see it's located, oh, well, yeah, I have an aliased thing, but it would give me this output.
You have fancy which?
I have fancy which. So right, our executable is located here. It's often useful, so that's how to find it, with Python and with a lot of like JavaScript, open source packaging. It's useful to create a virtual environment. Who doesn't know, wouldn't be familiar with what a virtual environment is for Python? Cool.
Raise their hand for a friend of mine.
For a friend of yours? Cool. So a virtual environment sets up a version of Python. So like say I want to have one project that does use Python 2.7 because my company didn't get with it, right? And then I want another Python project that uses Python 3, and maybe I want one that uses Python 3.5 versus 3.7. Or maybe I have two projects that would use a version of Python. So these executables, I might want to have multiple versions. Python has a way to do that, and I typically, there are a couple ways to do this. I still prescribe to using virtual env wrapper. Yeah. So what this does is it creates a directory that has different executables. And if you write this down, you can follow through their tutorial on how to get virtual env wrapper, but it gives me, So these are all different environments that I have set up. And if I switch to an environment that's my Pi environment, and I type which Python, it's now pointed to a different executable than before, and it's actually updated my path with this location to look for that executable first. So this is a way that it segments out one environment from the other. So if I switch to another environment, work on, and I have my SLCPy that I created just for this, and I type again which Python. I'm going to unalias which, and then which Python. That's the clean which output. So the unfancy which. This is the unfancy which, not your fancy which. So where it was before, it was pointed at my other Pi environment, and now it's pointed at my SLCPy executable. So when I type Python, that executable is this same one right here, right? And I wanted to touch on, so for this I was going to, the idea is talking a little bit about Python, the Python path, because that can kind of trip people up. This, for the most part, I feel like people, if you have a handle on the path thing, the Python path works very similar. So yes, let me build into that. So Python as a language, right? We have our main executable, which is this, creates this interpreter window, and I can type my commands here. So if I want to set a variable and then want to print that variable out, this is the code that I write, the Python syntax, and then I'm executing it line by line. Languages get extended by having libraries of code that are pre-written code that I can just use that somebody else has written. So we can import yeah, but anti-gravity is just going to kick me out and do some magic, right? Actually, we'll do this. Sys is a built-in, we call it a module or a library. And if I want to use, so dir is a built-in command, sys, dir of sys. This shows me a whole list of names and functions that are included in sys. So if I go sys.path, this is a variable that's part of the sys library, and it gives me a list, which is an ordered structure, of all of the places that it's going to look for other Python modules. So if I want to add, so this SysPython module, this sys library is a built-in to the language, but we want to extend this to our own modules as well as to third-party modules that will add, like write code for us that we can use and reuse. This sys.path is the source of truth of like this Python executable. This is where it's going to look. So sometimes if I'm getting tripped up on like, why isn't this importing? I'll import sys and show this and see whether I'm actually getting the directory I want to be included.
So what's the equivalent of which?
Oh, I got it. So what I typically do for the equivalent of which is I'll import a module. So I've added the request module, and I do request.file. This is the resolved file that it imported from.
There you go.
So
that the implementers of requests put that in there, or does that just come from Python?
that comes from Python.
Okay.
So these double underscores or dunderscores are Python special variables that Python reserves the right to overwrite and to use. And there's some assumptions around them.
Yeah. So in other words, I can expect that most of the time.
Yeah. Yep. It will write to this.
Yeah.
And
When it loads up a module,
yep.
it says, this is where I got it.
Yep, this is where I got it from. And so this underscore file, I actually use this quite a bit because one of the powers of Python is that you can explore the code. It's all open, unlike C code or a lot of the Windows compiled languages where they're like, here's the definition, here's a header file, but you don't get to see the actual code. Oh man, that stuff frustrates me because I'm like, I just want to see the function. But in Python, everything's open, so I can take this now and copy it, and maybe I'll make a new window here, and then I'll open up that file. So now I can actually see the Python code that is based on, and so if I want to overwrite anything or see how something works in order to utilize it better, I can explore the actual code base that my program is using. I'm going to close this window, keep that up. Are there any other questions on the path thing? Keep going. Yep. So this is a module I'm importing, and this is where it's importing from.
And that module is a package is what init.py.
Correct. So I could also, when I just showed opening up the file, I could open up that directory. So I'm going to create a new tab. Okay. So if I do a cd and navigate to that directory, here are all of the Python modules that are within that package. So when I imported requests, this _init is some magic. There is what it looks for in that directory, and it loads that file, and then that file will load other files. So all of these files make up that requests package that I imported. So if I want to, Control D, if I want to create my own library, I'm going to make my own directory. Okay, cool. I got library. Maybe I should have called it source, whatever. And I'm going to make a package that's called COVID Panic. And I'm going to add a file that's init.py. All right, so I'm on my, well, actually, I guess first, let me make just a, instead of making a directory, which we had before, I'm going to make I'm going to create a file, touch a file called covidpanic.py. Okay? It's in my lib, and I have my SLCPy, and let's see, I had opened up the code, but I can open it up. So let's just open up this whole directory. Inside of lib, I had my COVID panic, and I might explain this code, but maybe we won't get around to it. And I'm just going to make this a function that says get US outbreaks of COVID. I'm going to call it actually display because it doesn't return anything. It just prints stuff to the screen. Okay. So now I have a function, and it lives within my module called COVID Panic. And I have my code, and my code's going to, what I want to do is import COVID Panic and call my function COVID Panic dot, what did I call my function? Okay. Let me, well, so this file I'd opened in two places. Let me just regroup here with everybody. Okay? I have a directory. This directory is opened over here. It has a code.py file. That code.py file imports from a module. That's my own module, right? And it calls a function from that module. If I go to that module, this module is importing some other libraries. And we saw like the which of where requests come from where we could find out where RE comes from also doing that _ file. And then I have some code here that's this function. And this code is essentially going out to the CDC website, pulling in the HTML, doing some really rough regex searches, and then displaying some information.
Pro tip, don't use regex on HTML in the real world.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be a pain in the ass. There's another library called Beautiful Soup that is like the go-to for HTML parsing.
Let me look up. There's a better one I've been using. Hold on, I'll find it.
Okay.
But there's even HTML parsing as a standard library if
Right. But it works. We're going to ship it. All right. So now...
Tomorrow's Dylan's problem?
Yep. So now I have this code, right? And for most scripts, if you're running it from the command line, you can actually call that file, and it'll execute that code. So let's say I don't give myself an error, and I just said print hello world. I call Python, which is my executable we talked about, with the file that I want to execute.
Hello.
Hello, world. Cool. Round of applause for me. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. So,
Or you can use a shebang.
or I can do what?
You can use a shebang and make this
Yeah.
executable.
Yep. So what I'm going to do here now is import, but I'm getting this error, and the error is a module not found. So this comes back down to our path discussion and our executable discussion, right? I'm going to just go back to this tab, and if I do my work on SLC, I'll break my current one. We'll break it right here. So we showed how echo $path works, right? And if I go export path empty, and I try to type Python, who's got an idea what's going to happen? Command not found.
I don't know Python.
All right, can't find something. This is actually very similar to module not found, right? Your parent program, in this case it's Bash, in that case it's Python. That parent program is going to look for something, and it's looking, in this case, it's looking through the path, but hey, I just deleted my whole path, right? Like, there's nowhere for it to look, so it's just like, I don't know. And it gives me this, right? The same thing is happening up here, except it has some things, but it just doesn't know where it is. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself back a path by just copying and pasting this back in. Now if I do Python, okay, cool. And then import sys, right? So this is that same path. If I wanted to import my COVID panic, it's not there. But I could actually do sys.path insert.
No, now you're just showing off.
So I have the path to that directory. So I'm basically saying, hey, go look here, right? For that module, sys.path. So I just stuck dynamically added to my path, and now if I import code, got it. Nice. Ship it. All right, so in our thing, we can just add this like crazy insert code. This is great coding.
Don't ever. Please never do this.
Oh man, it tried to fix it for me. You broke my code.
It did.
Yeah.
It's like,
I have. Okay, what's happening when I hit save? My program has a linter that does PEP8 and formats the code and how it's supposed to be, right? This will execute. Yeah. So, like, it moved things around, right? But of course, if I run that, the COVID panic when it goes to look for it is going to fail. Not work. Yeah. Okay, but we can also do this in a better way, right? Because this is obviously, like, you hear the joking. This is not how you're supposed to do it. If I add to my shell something called the Python path, this works very similar to the other path. And I'm going to say, okay, Python path, here's an environment variable. Use environment variables, don't hard code things, right? That's the Docker lesson. Using an environment variable, I'm setting the Python path. I can view it, Python path, just like I was viewing echo $path. And now when I start up Python and I import sys and I do sys.path, it's automatically included, or it's not automatically included. Python looks for the environment variable and sticks it into path, and then when I try to import my module, it knows where to look, right? And that COVID panic file, so here's my directory, right? Here's my module that I created, and it knew how to look for it because I had it as part of the environment variables. And there's various ways that you can have the environment variable get set every time. So one of those might be a startup file, like a bash RC file. You might stick it in there so that every time the bash starts up, or I'm using a Z shell. So every time it runs all of these. Oh, that was a terrible demo thing to do. But basically, I want to somewhere have this executable command, right? Where it's going to do this as part of the shell. And there's ways to do it where it's not live, right? Because what I did here, where I exported it, and then I type Python, and then I import my COVID panic, right? That worked. But if I create a new shell, brand new, turned on my computer, turned it back on or whatever, and I type Python, and I try to import COVID panic, it doesn't have it as part of the Python path, and so that's not going to work. Also, I need to be in my virtual environment. But still, Python, import COVID panic, doesn't know where it is because it doesn't have it as part of it. The virtual env wrapper has something called add to virtual environment. And so if I give it a directory, now if I deactivate the environment and I go back on the environment, import Python, import sys, it's actually added it as part of the Python path. And now it'll do that every time. So this is one of the nice things about a virtual environment, is that you have not only your modules that you might want for a particular Python project, you might have all of the versions for that, and that sort of bundles it all together. Okie dokie. All right, let's come back to so I added it to the path. Yeah, we'll just close all that out. We got a nice new one here. Okay. So I have my virtual environment, right? It knows where my library is, so my code.py file, I don't need this anymore. That was super hacky. We're going to be a little better programmers. I'm going to import from my module, and I'm going to call that function. So I can just call now Python code.py. Remember, before when I did this, it gave me that import error because it couldn't find it. But now we know it's going to find it. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. It knows where to look. Oh my god, 9 deaths. So it ran my function, and of course part of my function was to go to CDC, bring it back, take the deaths, divide by the number of cases, 11th percent death rate of known cases, and then also find when that was last updated, right?
Yeah, not 11% of the population.
Yeah.
That would be a
So I can add like total cases, That's death rate. Oh my gosh, I can do Unicode, right?
Your editor should have a way of putting
Yeah, but I don't memorize how to do that. I'm just gonna like Google search it. Hey, look,
that works.
Unicode character. All right, so I updated it. I saved the code. Now when I run the code again, I'm gonna make some spaces. There we go.
I'm not sure if we should clap.
Okay, that's my talk. That was a bit about the path and how these things get put together. Are there any final questions for me? Great.
Thanks, you.
Yeah.
I assume the follow-up talk is, taking that module code and turning it into a proper package, right?
Yeah. And that's
Tomorrow.
where that underscore and it thing comes in. Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow on Reddit, it's like pip install COVID.
Yeah. COVID panic. Yeah, you gotta.
You wanna take us away?
Sure. Is there anything special I have to do for the video recording?
This is it. As soon as you plug it in, it should work.
All the hard work was Faris setting it up to begin with. It's really smooth once you have it set up.
We try. We try.
Didn't AD used to have to come in and set up the recording for us?
No, I always had it set up for us. Yeah. We used to use Hangouts on Air, and then that's a Google product, so we could only use it for like a year, and then they decided to expire
And
it.
they took it away.
Yeah. And then we ended up doing YouTube streaming with OBS, so
Oh, nice.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not salty about them deprecating that at all. Yeah, Open Broadcast something. It's open source. If you watch anything on Twitch or YouTube Gaming, that's what they're using. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, let's check that out. And then where's the microphone? Is that?
It's this.
Okay, so just
Yes.
talk in this general direction and
Yes.
we should be fine. All right. Okay, so I'll show you another Google product that hopefully isn't going to be deprecated, but given that a lot of people...
I made that joke in your
So one can hope, but we'll see.
You know they started charging for Kubernetes,
10 cents an hour for cluster.
but they didn't. Never mind. I'm not going to get into it.
All right. So I'm going to be talking about Google Cloud Build, and the context in Python is that testing your code is very important. Setting up environments is very difficult, as Dylan kind of showed us, right? If you want to test your code, you can't just test the code. It has to be tested in the environment where it's supposed to run. And so for that, it's really nice to have a build system. And Cloud Build is actually a very nice build system, but it's also, frankly, kind of hard to understand from the documentation, especially if you're not already familiar with containers. And so I put together several examples where we just pull a public Python container, and you can either install things there, or you could just test if you have no dependencies right inside the container. And it is basically free if you have a Google Cloud account. So if you have a Gmail account, then you already have a Google Cloud Platform account, and you get something like 120 build minutes per day. That's on a single CPU machine, so it's not a lot of power, but there's quite a bit you can do with that. So let me show you kind of, I have some slides, but I don't intend to spend a huge amount of time on them. Mostly I want to just go through the code, but I'll show you the basics here, and then the slides will be online in case the information there is useful. So first of all, let me point you to the GitHub repo. You're welcome to follow along, or we'll post it. Oh, we're totally not getting anything up there. Okay, thank you for letting me know. I must be set in the wrong mode here.
Embrace the Mojave Desert.
Yes. So how do I? So I guess I had to demonstrate exactly what Faris said in terms of getting things set up. Hold on. Okay. Mirror. I want mirror. There we go. That's much better. Okay. Let me know if you can't see something in the near future here. Okay, so I have these notes I put together. Again, I'm not going to go through all these slides in detail, but the slides will be online if you want to see any of the information here. But mostly I just have some examples on GitHub. And so you can just clone that repo and do most of these tests just right away, and then modify the tests in Cloud Build with your own code pretty quickly. So let's jump into the GitHub repo. Okay, so in the GitHub repo, I have a README down here which goes through 4 different examples, and the examples are in these 4 folders up here. And the easiest way to run this code is in the Google Cloud Shell. The nice thing about that, you can run these examples locally, but you'll have to put in some credentials and install CLI. So if you run these from the Cloud Shell, everything is installed and you have permissions set already. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so if you open your GCP account, and you can, if you go to console.cloud.google.com, you can get to Google Cloud Platform just with your Gmail address. And then if you go up to this button in the corner, I can open up the Cloud Shell. And so it just gives me a terminal shell and virtual machine right in my browser, basically. And I've cloned the repo down here. Kind of help you guys see. Can you kind of, that's not cut off? Okay, good. Did it disconnect? It may have disconnected. Let me reconnect. Okay, so while that's reconnecting, let me go through some of these examples. So the first one, these are airflow tests, but the tests are super simple, actually. So has anyone here dealt with airflow before? I know you have. And how many of you have seen a broken DAG error before? Yes, everyone has. Okay. And what everyone does is they write their code and they drag and drop it into the interface or into the bucket, and then it's broken, right? There's a super simple test that I'll show you that will help you to help to prevent these errors, which no one runs.
Wait, you can run this without errors?
I won't go that far, but
okay.
this will help. So. Okay, so let me first show you test.sh. Test.sh is what does most of what we need to do. And then I'll explain what cloudbuild.yaml is. That's where you kind of pull in a standard container, and then you're going to run test.sh inside that. Oops, actually I didn't intend to do that. Let's see. Let's go back. Let's go to test.sh. Okay, so what does this do? What is this set-e? I had to look this up today.
It makes Bash work more like a normal programming language, so it crashes when something goes wrong.
Exactly.
Continuing on like a freight train.
Yeah, and so if you're testing with Bash, you need this, right? Because if your code fails somewhere, then you want it to exit with status 1 and tell you that something is broken, so you see an alert in Cloud Build that the build is broken. So
you also
yeah.
want to do set-o pipe fail.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Set-e will only fail if the first one in a pipeline fails.
Okay. So this is improve this basically if you use it. Yes.
Make a pull request.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
make a pull request.
Yeah. Okay, so what does this do? So I have it fail if one of my lines fails. And then I'm also installing my dependency. So generally when you're running a testing framework, you need to somewhere install your dependencies or have your dependencies pre-built in some kind of image. So that's what I do here. Pip install Apache Airflow. So Python is pre-installed. I'll show you why in a second. And then the test that you run, you make sure you're in an environment in Python where you have the correct version of Airflow installed with the correct dependencies, and you just run Python on your DAG file. And that will parse it, it will import everything, and that catches probably over 90% of broken DAG errors. So remember that when you're working with Airflow, configure things locally, and this super simple dumb test will prevent a lot of pain. Yes. Okay, so now let me show you the rest of what goes on here. And I think this cloudbuild.yaml is why people get confused by cloud build. So the documentation, I mean, it's good documentation, but it's very dense, and so it's probably not clear what's going on if you just look at a simple example. So what cloud build does behind the scenes is just pull a container and run some code inside that container. And you can actually do that more than once. So maybe you need to test with different tool chains or something. You can pull a series of containers with different tools installed and just run steps inside each container. And so in this case, I'm doing something very simple. I'm just pulling a single container, and then I'm running that bash script inside of it. So specifically, here where I have Python 3.7, let me show you where that comes from. Let's see, we want Docker Hub. So I look up Docker Hub. And let's pull, what we're going to do is look at the standard Python container here. And so all I'm doing is pulling the Python container under this name. If I give Cloud Build a container name with no full URL, it just defaults to going to Docker Hub, essentially. So Google mirrors those containers over to Google Cloud. And then beyond that, Airflow doesn't yet support Python 3.8, and so you need to make sure that you're pulling a version lower than that. And so if you go down here to supported tags, you'll see that 3.7 is one of the supported tags. And so I have Python 3.7 pre-installed inside that container, plus a bunch of other basic Linux tools. You can check, I think the image is based on Alpine or Debian or something like that, which can be important for testing as well. And so what this directive does is it pulls the Python 3.7 container that's on Docker Hub, and then the entry point is bash. So in other words, I'm going to run a bash script, and then it just points to my test.sh file, the one I just showed you. Yeah.
And you would use this instead of something like Docker Compose? Like you wouldn't, or can you point to Docker Compose with like environments? That's another way to specify a container and entry point, right?
Right. So the idea here is that you just run it remotely. So you can run a CLI command, and it will just spin it up in a virtual machine on Google Cloud for you. And so instead of having to use Compose locally, yeah.
So Cloud Build is kind of comparable to a CI?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. It's like a very simple but powerful CI. So I don't know if you've used like AWS Code Build is kind of their equivalent.
Or CI, or
right.
the bucket pipelines.
Exactly right. Yeah. And so then.
The YAML looks very similar to DevOps.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think if you're somewhat familiar with Docker, then this will probably make a whole lot of sense. And that's where the real power is. If you want to use containers with like pre-built dependencies to control your environments, then this works very well. It doesn't have the full power of something like a Jenkins, where it has all kinds of monitoring functionality and capability. It does have some monitoring functionality in the UI, but just some basic stuff, essentially. Okay, so let's go back to the Cloud Shell, and I'm in my Python demo here. Actually, no, let's see. So I want to go cd test. Figure out where I'm going here. Okay. Guess I need to figure out where I am. Oh yeah, that's the one I want. Okay. Okay, and so inside here, this is just the Git repo that I pulled. And so I can look at several different examples here. So and so to submit the build, you go into the folder where your code exists. You run this command. So this gcloud is the Google Cloud CLI tool. So it's much like the AWS CLI tool that you may be familiar with if you've worked on AWS. And then I do gcloud build submit, and anyway, you can look up this command, and I point to my YAML file. And what this does is it grabs everything in the local directory, it puts it in a tar file, it uploads it, and then the build will run on a virtual machine remotely. And so it looks at the YAML file, it decides which container it needs to pull, pulls that container, and then runs my commands inside of that container. And so this will take about a minute or so to run. And so while that's running, I'll just show you some other options here. Now what's the problem with doing it the way I did it with this test.sh script? Well, there are some expensive operations here. So here I'm doing this pip install. Apache Airflow is like, it's a big project, and so it has to install itself, plus it has to install all of its dependencies. And so to run this full build takes maybe 2 minutes, which isn't too bad. But if you're developing and you want to run tests frequently, then that time might be kind of a pain. So what else could we do here instead? Any ideas from a container perspective? How could we make this more efficient? Exactly, yeah. And so what we can do instead is pre-build a container that has exactly the dependencies we want. And that we can update just once in a while when we need to update Airflow. So say when we're updating our production version, we can rebuild our container, our Airflow container, to reflect those changes. And so that's the other version of the build. Let's go to, in fact, it's split into 2 parts. So the first one is here, build Airflow container. So this would take a while to run, take a couple minutes, so I won't actually run it. But you can find examples like this, or you can try running this code. What this code does essentially is pulls a standard, it's a builder container. So it's a container with a bunch of Docker tooling installed inside that builds another container within. If that makes any sense. So it's very meta, right? But this is
Inception.
It's Inception, exactly.
Inception.
It's Docker and Docker, if you've seen that. Yeah.
It's the dream.
Yes. But the point is, you don't have to write this code. You can just take this and modify it to do what you want. So has anyone here written a Docker file before? Yeah, so okay, so it sounds like all of you are familiar. So if you have a Docker file, then you can use this to just build it remotely and then store it for later use. And the nice thing about storing it for later use is then you have a snapshot in time. So you run a build command, you're basically just running this build command. I'm pulling...
And it has its own storage mechanism?
Yeah, so both AWS and Google Cloud have their own Docker registries built in. And so this, inside your project that you've created on Google Cloud, there's just a built-in registry there that this gets pushed to. And so let me go to the Docker file as well, which is super simple. So the Docker file, what the Docker file does is pulls that same Python 3.7 container from Docker Hub, and then it just runs this pip install command. So it basically does those same steps. But now, instead of discarding that work when the build is done, we save it out because of the way we've built this. And if I go to GCP, go to registry, let's see, container registry. So these images will basically just show up here. And so I've tagged it within my project as Airflow. And so the URL ends up being, it's gcr.io, and then the name, the project ID, SLCPython demo, and then Airflow. And so when I try to pull that again the next time, which let's go back and look at that code, if I'm pulling from within my project, I have rights to my own registry, and so I'll get the latest built version in that path, basically, at that URL. So I have another build here where I build this container, and then in the other build, I just pull that pre-built Airflow container and run my tests inside of it. So test from Airflow container. So this time, what does my cloud build.yaml look like? Well, instead, this time, the name is this container that I built. So again, my project ID right here, and then the name that I gave to the container. And then I run my test.sh this time. And now it's just a little bit simpler. So I run python of dag.py, there's no installation, and so this build will run in about half the time. And so it takes less than a minute to run this. And again, it gives me a nice remote standardized environment. So I can bypass certain kinds of errors that I might see locally in testing. Now if I go down here, what happens? Well, we see a lot of stuff happening here. Basically, most of this log output is just the build process of pip installing Airflow. And then the last thing that happens is I run Python on my DAG file. I see success. So in other words, I shouldn't have a broken DAG. There's really good chance that I don't have a broken DAG now. And so I can go to the next step of testing of actually going into my Airflow system. Now, with the build system like this, there's nothing to prevent me from running other code, right? I can run tests, I can run builds, but it's just containers. And so I could really run any kind of code I wanted to. And so theoretically, you could use triggers with Cloud Build to run interesting tasks during the day. So one thing you might want to do is pull some data. And so here's an example of how to pull data instead and save it out to cloud storage. So in this case, I could use a container that I built, but Google, actually, is this the right one? Yeah. Hold on. This is the one I want, pull and write data. There we go. So this time I'm pulling a pre-built container that Google provides. They provide several different containers with pre-installed tooling, and this one includes the gcloud command line tool. And so the idea of having that command line tool is that I can pull data from an API, and then I can write it out to cloud storage just using the CLI. And so I this time use that, that container with the gcloud tool, and I run the pull data.sh script. So let's see what that does. Okay, and so I'm running curl against this web page. Really, it's just a web page. There's no authentication or anything, but I'll show you real quick what that is. I mean, you can think of it as an API where you pull the latest IP address ranges for AWS. So this is often important actually for DevOps if you need to update your network security and what IP addresses you're allowed to connect to, then you connect to this. And so what this does is grabs that web page, this JSON data that's updated whenever AWS updates their IP address ranges, dumps that to a file, and then I just use the gsutil command line tool to push to cloud storage. And so inside this project, I have a bucket. Let's see. And there we go. So there's a bucket that I've created. And I'm going to delete the existing artifact. And we'll try running this again. I seem not to be able to see the bottom. Why can't I see the bottom? It might be. That is strange. I'll move the window, see if that fixes the issue. Oh, you know what? I think I don't know what's going on. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Thank you. All right, so let's try this again. Let's switch to that directory. So it does its thing. It takes a second here. And you'll see it go through the steps. And so it does have to pull the container behind the scenes. There are various caching mechanisms that you can use to speed up that process. Okay, so it ran actually pretty quickly this time. So it ran in about 10 seconds. And so let's check cloud storage and see if we can find what we're looking for. Don't do it. Don't do it. I think my laptop is inspired by your laptop.
Aw. Cute.
Wow. Okay. It might actually be. I don't know. It's completely locked up. So, like my Mac is working. The browser is definitely not. It's not happy. So, let's try creating a new browser window and see. See if stuff showed up here, hopefully. Okay, so there it is. So grabbed IP address ranges, it did its thing. So it's definitely a tool worth playing around with, and it's it's just a good practice in general, even if you're doing simple local development, set up remote test environments that are standardized so that you can do sanity checks when your environment suddenly seems to completely break and you have no idea why. You can go back to an environment you've been using for a while and run a test. So, and that is that. Thank you for your attention.
Our next meetup will be on the 1st of April.
Oh.
This is the second time we've had an April Fool's meetup.
Don't worry, he's not gonna have any time to do anything between now and then.
Yeah. Or will I have too much time on paternity leave?
That is until your computer crashes the week before.
Yeah, something. If the computer doesn't crash, I will. So, for the marbles, we got to 27 Pythonistas. I really don't want to share this screen again. It is not giving me a good time, but I'm going to. For the, boom. Come on. Please just work. Okay. That did kind of just work. That's a first. Oh, but it put it on this side. Okay. Easy now. Careful. Easy. Okay. Do that. And then that. And then that. Can everybody see that? Oh. Okay, so. That. Okay. That's a folder.
Have you checked your path? Where are those underscores?
I don't know. I know what's going on. It's I have to render this out. For some reason, this projector, I have to render it out as like this isn't a full 1080 screen.
Yeah.
So I think the line length doesn't match the terminal. Something like that. Whatever. Number of Pythonistas, 27.
Why do you do snake case? Or not snake case, the camel case?
Because I don't hate myself, Dylan. We're going to import random. Rand. And then random dot rand int. And we're going to start with 0, and we're going to say number of Pythonistas. Don't I want what?
Do you?
Do I want
Do you?
1? I'm a 0-based counting over here, so.
Well, no, but
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure with Brandon that they won't include the upper bound.
they do. It's
They do.
It does.
If you want. No, this is pair programming. This is pair programming.
One of those
Okay.
things you always have to look at the docs because you never remember.
Or do a test. I've definitely done this test many times.
Oh yeah. So have I, in front of all of you. But I'll do it again. 1. And look, this is called
there's a
brute
one.
force
There's a one.
brute force
Oh, it's
testing.
not random.
It's not random, guys. Okay, there we go.
Maybe it's just partial to 1.
Yeah, I think it's biased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely done on
Yeah,
one.
we should try it a million more times and look.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, we got the Pi portal, which we demoed a little bit today, and the Hallowing. You can feel free to pick one of these if your number is called.
The number of Pythonistas, isn't that one more than that?
I'm 0.
Oh.
Snap. 11. Yes. Love it when a new guy gets it. Halloween or Pi portal? last one will be this guy, number 23.
23, 23.
You must be present to win.
Going.
Gone. Number 9. John, hey! All right. I will see you all on April 1st. Have a lovely day.